right, I'd like to start the meeting of the Burlington High School Committee and Burlington High School Committee combined meeting on March 13th, 2025. The public can also access this meeting via WebEx technology. The Burlington High School Building Committee will hear public comments in person and virtually. Meetings are also broadcast live on BCAT, and video audio recordings are being made. This meeting is, could you please mute? This meeting of the Burlington High School Building Committee will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this meeting in person. Please note that while an option for remote attendance or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. If you are participating remotely, please identify yourself by typing your name on the screen in advance and verbally once you're identified to speak. We request that you please turn on your camera. Comments and statements are limited to 3 minutes. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Here's Chris.
There he is.
Hey, Chris,
I
we
didn't
knew
check
you were
off
coming.
yet, and I didn't check you as an ex, so you're here. And Bob, Melissa said she's going to be running late. Could you let me know when she joins, please? Yeah, thank you. All right. First item up is approval of the February 13th, 2025 meeting minutes. Anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And I guess I can take that vote, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Chris Monaco,
Yes.
Jeremy Brooks,
Aye.
Megan,
Yes.
Melissa's not on yet. Dr. Conti,
Yes.
Lisa Chen,
Yes.
Mimi? Yes. Chris Campbell,
Yes.
Cole's not here. Bob Kuno,
Yes.
Doug Davidson,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Mark Sullivan,
Yes.
and Zachary.
Yes.
Okay. And you were present at the last one, so thank you very much. Yes, we appreciate it. Okay. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in favor. 0, 0. All right. Next item is commitments, invoices for approval, and budget update. And I will pass this over to Mrs. Monaco, since it has to be the school committee who votes on this.
So the first item that I see is a Doran Whittier invoice for $18,000. Is that, Terry, is that an accurate?
Yeah, so our contract was basically the term from when we started through November, and so it's effectively an $18,000 retainer. It's monthly.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve invoice number 16 in the amount of $18,000 to Doran Whittier.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
You have to take
Yeah,
the,
yeah, I know. Jeremy? Jeremy?
Just had a question. So if this is a retainer, and are we above budget now? Asking for more funding, or does this still fit into the scope of the original project budget?
It fits currently within the scope, but I'm going to hit on the budget after we go through this, Jeremy.
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Catherine?
yes.
Melissa's not on yet. Chair votes aye. It is 4-0-0. The next item appears to be an invoice in the amount of $17,208.
Nope,
Nope.
look down below.
At $22,707.25. And that is for Tapé, is that correct?
It is.
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments, any questions? Jeremy?
No comments. Aye.
You voted aye? Okay, Catherine?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. That's also 4-0. And there seems to be something else here. What is this?
I think if you'd let me, I can explain what that is.
Go ahead.
So this is a commitment to spend up to $30,000 to complete an ANRAD. An ANRAD, for those that are not familiar with, is effectively to go out into the practice field area to perform wetlands flagging. We have to bring a wetland scientist out there, do some surveying, add it to the existing plans, then present those plans to conservation, ultimately have a hearing. So that is a somewhat prescribed process. We did that for a portion of the property. We didn't do it for the practice field, which I think most people in this room are familiar with. This is effectively a commitment to do that work, and we are, we're about to launch this work, so I think this is somewhat critical and important in the context of looking at potentially moving a football stadium field into that area. So one, I think it's critical for this project, but even separate from that, I do believe that it's an asset for the school and the town to understand where exactly everything is in relation to that field for any potential future use. So that's what that is for. And in terms of where the funding for that comes from, you may remember that part of the budget includes $100,000 for the discretion of the committee to allocate funds for this. So this obviously fits well within that budget. So my recommendation would be to go forward with it, but I'll happily take any questions.
So I don't see the 30,000 in a form of an invoice to approve or of a commitment. Am I looking at the wrong page?
You're not. So right now it's a commitment, and we will provide you with the actual proposal, which we have.
Okay, so
and
you
it's-
want to vote on a
I
commitment?
want to vote on commitment. There is no invoice right now because the work has not been performed. So it's a commitment.
Okay, and if we should decide on a project that does not, let's say between now and when you do this, we should make a decision to go another route. We could halt it before it starts.
We can, but, to the extent work has been performed, we would have to.
Correct.
We'd be obligated to pay it. So,
Okay.
and just in terms of the time frame for that, we would ideally like to have this flagging completed over the course of the next couple of weeks in the intention of getting it in front of conservation, honestly, as soon as possible and potentially before the end of the month. So that's one of the reasons why this has taken a little bit of time. Really has to do with snow melt, which I think everyone knows. The snow, unless you have a plowed pile, is no longer on field. So we can complete this work somewhat quickly.
Is there a motion to make a commitment to, want to give me the wording? A motion to make a commitment to,
I think you can just, a motion
ANRAD.
to commit up to $30,000 to complete ANRAD associated with relocating varsity field to the existing practice field. I think that covers it.
okay. Can we have a motion to that effect?
Yes, I'll make a motion to commit up to $30,000 to complete ANRAD associated with relocating varsity field to the existing practice field.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Jeremy, you got any discussion?
Yeah, just again, coming out of the 100K of discretionary funds. That's about a third of the budget there. So just for discussion's sake, and then, we are at 92% expended on environmental. Yeah, I'm good. Sorry. Just thinking out loud. I'm good.
That's all right. Okay, all those in favor. Jeremy?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Chair votes aye, 400. And I believe it goes back to Catherine now.
Yes. Yes, it does.
And it goes to
Okay.
me.
So I'm going to pass it over to you all to talk about the
Yeah.
project schedule.
So, I'm gonna kind of combine the budget and the schedule, just to kind of broadly. The good news is that, we're on budget. And, the intention always was to have a PSR completed and a schematic design available so that it could be presented as part of town meeting in the fall. And I believe we can still do that, provided we make a decision on a preferred option. And we've put that schedule in front of you to complete that by the April 10th meeting. And we will stay within budget, assuming we stick to that schedule. To the extent there is an extension of that, we're gonna have to figure out how to basically pay for the consultants to do that work. Do I think that's a tremendous amount of money? I do not. But that's what the firms were contracted to do, and that's the time frame that, we're under, and so that's where we are. But I do believe that, we're in pretty good shape right now, and we should be able to stick with that. And so if I flip over the page just to kind of hit schedule, you'll see an overall project timeline that talks about fall town meeting, a debt exclusion vote, the construction start targeting the spring of '27, with kids occupying a school or a new space in the fall of 2029. So I don't know if you see that there. And then I put in another schedule, which is more really over the next 9 months, so that people can see kind of where we are, and you'll see that, we talk about narrowing the options down on April 10th, completing a schematic design and getting it to an estimator, so that basically in mid-August, we have an SD and an estimate that people can really sink their teeth into to understand what's going to go to town meeting. And then on the basis that town meeting were to put that forward, there's, our expectation is that it would be a debt exclusion vote. I haven't put that as a date because that's not really up to us, but once town meeting were to put that forward, it would then
Slide.
move forward. Yeah, it is the next slide. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you're able to
There you
move
go. So that's broadly where we are in terms of budget and schedule. I think, there's a lot of materials in here that, we want to get through in terms of the options. I'm not going to take anything away from Chris, but, options, really phasing. We have updated costs on all of this, and so I think there's a lot to talk about. We also are proposing an additional public meeting on the 27th, which I think is pretty much a done deal. It's 2 weeks from today. It'll be in the BHS auditorium. So that's where we are in terms of those items.
Thank you. All right. And then the next item is the responses.
Yep,
to
so
the
we
questions
had a few questions that, we took out of the last meeting. We also had we had an abutters meeting, which I know many people in this room attended, so there was a lot of Q&A back and forth then. Some of these questions I think we're gonna be addressing through the course of this discussion, as well as what we did over the last couple of weeks, but it says, can the project team provide more detail on the options of placing the football field on the practice field? And so I just put, please refer to the presentation dated on the 13th, and there is quite a bit in there for additional information on field options. In addition, the process of flagging and delineating the wetlands will be discussed during this particular meeting, so I tried to address that. Can you clarify the source of the $300 million estimate for the complete renovation? And as has been discussed and publicized, it's assumed the source of funding will require a debt exclusion from the residents of the town of Burlington. And then it says that the next meeting, could visuals be provided for the remaining options showing what the building would look like? So there's a bunch of new kind of floor plate designs that you're gonna see in here. I think in the abutters meeting, we had some massing diagrams to show different views of what the buildings will look like. That's all available on our project website, in the community outreach tab. And so,
So I highly recommend, again, I'm more of a 3D visual person, so there was a video made with Dr. Conti where they swap out all the different options that are available. That's in 3 dimensions. If you're interested, you can watch that on BCAT. And, you know, I'm sure we'll bring it to the next community meeting as well.
and thank you for mentioning that, Catherine. In addition to that, on the website, for each of the options, there are also 2 to 3 minute videos of each option that really explain each of them. So I would encourage folks to look at those as well, to the extent they don't want to sit through an entire building committee meeting. They are somewhat condensed and provide a good description of each option.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So next is public comment, and again, it's anything that is not going to be discussed in this meeting, and we request that you please keep your statements to 3 minutes. So is there anybody who'd like to come up? Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Bob Young. I live at 3 Valley Circle. I want to just say I'm offended by what this gentleman just said. He said that $30,000 didn't seem like a lot of money to him. Well, I'm offended by that. I really am. And I don't know about anybody else sitting here, but we got a lot of people in this town that are hardworking people. And to just cavalierly say that was really something, to sit there and hear. And I'm glad I'm here to at least say something. So that was really something. Thank you. And so there are definitely a lot of questions. And I'd like to know, you did some of the testing last April and
Bob,
May.
can we not point at people?
Fine.
All right.
You did some testing last April and May. I talked to the conservation administrator today, and you only did part of it. You only did part of it. And so the question is, why didn't you do it at that time? And I said at a meeting before, we're supposedly getting expertise, people that this committee brags about, how smart you are and how many projects you do. Why didn't you do it last spring, and now you come here 12 months later, and you've already pitched building on the place, and you don't even know if you can build on it? So that's the question I have. And the school you're going to build down the corner
Bob,
isn't
please,
even a
Bob.
gym.
You're out of order. You're getting
Thank you.
very rude in how you're treating Terry, so please.
Yeah, he's rude for saying $30,000.
All right, but he did not raise his voice. We'd appreciate it if he didn't either.
Fine,
Thank you.
if he's man enough to answer.
Because we don't answer questions, as you're aware, until the next meeting. So sorry that you don't like that, but that's the way it works, okay? So thank you. All right, somebody else would like to come up, please? Anyone in the audience?
Millie?
Millie?
It's me again, Millie
Hi, Millie.
Nash,
Hi.
town meeting member, precinct 3, and a butter on Sunset Drive. I have 4 points to make quickly. I have good reason to believe that the building that we have here now is structurally sound for 2 reasons. Because the Ways and Means representative at the auditorium meeting a couple Wednesdays ago had said this building is structurally sound. And when you look at the 9 different proposals, it looks as if among them, every part of this building is used. So for that reason, I think that we do have a currently structurally sound building. So I keep thinking, what does need to be fixed? What is the problem with the school? And it is that it needs to be maintained. and in fact, in the first renovation, seemed to be kind of a maintenance that got out of hand. I look at Marshall Simons, I look at Memorial, they were maintained, boilers were fixed if they weren't working, air conditioning was fixed if it wasn't working, elevators could be added here if the ramps are a problem. So I think that we need to keep in mind that the real function of education is to provide good study habits and learning for the kids. And we had some former students who went through this building and don't seem irreparably harmed by it. They seemed quite articulate and wonderful. So I think that we need to keep our first priority. We have always taken care of everyone. We're one of the few towns that does not charge for the kids to ride buses. We do not charge for the kids to play in sports. But what about all of people who happen to be my age, who live in the Little Capes and the split levels, which are the majority of the houses here, who are finding it harder and harder to see their tax bills going up at the same time when they're not sure what's happening to Medicaid and all of that. This seems like a very poor time to change. So I am hoping that you will add one option, which is that what we need to do is to maintain this building and make it last closer to the 100 years that it was supposed to last. I wish we would think of that as a serious proposal, because this is a time when tariffs are going crazy. The country is not at a good place, and we have 2 new buildings we're already putting in. I urge you, think of this as one more option that gets seriously discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Right. Is there, yes, please come up. Welcome back. But please identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Laura Sharma. I'm at One Sunset. I just want to say thank you for the abutters meeting that we had a couple weeks back. That was the first time I think I felt heard and heard some reassuring information. I have 2 questions. I know you can't answer them. At the abutters meeting, we were discouraged from talking about the varsity field because we were told that that wasn't going to be placed in the current high school, or not wasn't, but it was heading in the direction of not being placed in the current high school's footprint. And so the question was asked, and I didn't see it up there, about if we were told that if there were a motion to eliminate that from the option, the placement of the varsity field in the footprint, it would have to happen at this meeting. So I'm wondering if that is going to happen, if it is a possibility. I think it would be very reassuring. And my second question is, will there be, I know there's a public comment meeting in 2 weeks that you just said, but will there be more abutters meetings? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I actually didn't think I was going to speak at this meeting, but now that I'm here, I feel
I didn't
obligated
catch your
to.
first name, I'm sorry.
My name is Amanda Lee.
Amanda. Oh, yes.
I'm a 20-year educator, a 10-year educator at BHS, and I'm also a resident of Burlington. I live on 20 James Street. And I wanted to briefly speak at this meeting to talk about the fact that the teachers and the students are long overdue for a new high school. I'm here to speak about the fact that I believe that the best option for Burlington High School is a new building. Before I came to Burlington High School, I was a teacher for 10 years at Drake Senior High School. That school went through a renovation, and I was there for 5 years of a time that was extremely disruptive to the students and to the teachers. In my 10 years at Drake High School, I moved classrooms every 5 years. So I'm here to speak for the fact that I'm here to say that we desperately need a new building, one that is least disruptive to the school day, one where students will still be able to drive to school, which we know will be an issue if we continue to look at some of the other options. I don't want to take any more of your time. I wanted to thank you so much, and that I hope you know that there are a number of residents that do want a new BHS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? My name is May. I just want to give a support for new high school because I agree with
Amanda?
Amanda saying that for disruption, it will cause disruption for students in school while the construction is going on. And if we don't do it now, inflation is going to go up. So I don't know how many years after that you're going to do with the project, but I feel like we have to do it now if we're going to do it, and we need a new high school. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else from the audience? And then I'm going to take some people online, if there anyone online. The gentleman in the front first. And that's all right, you come on. You're already up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, hopefully you don't mind. Yeah.
Jason Fregoso, I was here at the Abutters meeting. I live at 29 Sunset. Thank you for your time tonight. All right, so to the members of the school committee who have voiced their preference for a brand new building in a detached school is kind of how I'm framing it. I understand your desire but there's a significant chance that that's not a possibility based on the study of if you can put the fields kind of in the wetlands area. Many abutters share this concern that NC5 will result in a varsity field that will ultimately be back in our neighborhood if it's not possible to put it in where the practice field is today. And I really just want to say, like, I think we have a great option. I think AR8 solves a lot of problems. It's a new school. I know we like to call it an ad renovation, but I think a lot of people miss the point that it is a new school. It's a fully new learning experience for the children. Calling it a reno feels misleading. A lot of people, when they're looking online, are not digging deeper to see that this is actually a new building. So when people, fill out a petition saying they want a new school, it's confusing about like what that means. Does it mean a detached building or something that is new, built onto something we have that already works? So there's a lot of great options here, and I want to just go through a few things. It's the fastest option. It gets kids in school in 24 months. So, I mean, it sounds like the experience in Drake that Amanda had was terrible, and I hope we don't replicate that here. A 24-month time span seems like a pretty good option. Kids will not be displaced in swing spaces. Of the remaining options, it's the most cost-effective. Plus, due to its phasing, there's two phases. The latter phase updates the auditorium and the gymnasium. As folks have mentioned with tariffs and kind of the uncertainty that we live in today, maybe there provides some optionality when we get to phase 2 that we might want to tweak that. Maybe we extend the timeline. It gives you options potentially if you want to do something different there. I also think it's the best option for traffic. If you drive your kid to school today, you know that it backs well up onto Cambridge Street. If you were to put a school where the varsity field is today, that's only going to back up further, right? And so the solution to that is probably to drive people around the lot like we do today. But if you're going to do that, the student parking lot is going to cross over traffic, right? So you're going to wait for that traffic, or you're going to have a crossing guard. It's going to be a bit of a mess, right? And also, students like the plan. So my son is in the high school today. They had a flex block where they talked about the plan. Lots of kids liked it. I know it was a small sample size, and I don't want to diminish that. But I think it's important that we don't diminish that, right? The kids said they liked it. They liked it mainly because they weren't going to lose varsity field. Losing varsity field is a disruption, just like, swing space and things like that could be. Let's see here. And lastly, I think it can pass. Like, if we want a new school, we have to choose an option that works for a lot of people. The abutters, the people that are desperately want a new school, we can all question of whether this is the right time or if there will be a better time in the future. But if you want to pass this, which is why we're all here, choosing an option that we can all agree on is a really, really good one.
And your time is up if you
You
could
got it,
wrap
that's
it up,
it.
please.
That was most of it. All right, thank you so
Sorry.
much.
Thank you very much. Here in the front, please. And then I'll go to people online.
Thank you. My name is Peter Casperson. I live up on Indian Hill Road in the Spruce Hill neighborhood. I've lived in this town for off and on over my entire life, actually. And I'm saying that because of a couple of things And I'm gonna go back to varsity field being on, where the practice field currently is. When I was younger in this area, you could walk in that field and it wasn't much of an issue. Nowadays, even my neighbors, we still talk about it. You walk in the field now and it's wet. There used to be a pathway at the bottom of Spruce Hill that would come over to Valley Circle that's completely underwater since I've been back in town for the past 10 years. So, I mean, the wetlands have completely changed. There's a lot more growth in there. The reason I say all that is because, A, it's a challenge I think that might not work out. B, the concern of myself and maybe some others are, is gonna end up where the current high school is, because one certain plan goes a certain way, and then when that plan doesn't work out, it's gonna be, okay, can't do it now we gotta put over where the secondary field is gonna go in the center. So, I think that's a perception that, I don't wanna speak for others, but at least I have. And my second comment is, I'm 100% on board with the school for the students. New school, I think many of the options are good options. The one where the school goes, where the current varsity field is probably the bottom of the list from myself. And I think that because of where I live, we don't want the Friday lights, in our neighborhood. We like, where I live, I hear the football games and I hear the band, and it's a good level. You move varsity field or even the other field, which will eventually have people on it, to all times at night, because the recreation schedule discovered last week in the meeting went till, I think, 10 p.m. a lot of times. That's an elevated field, less trees in the way, so the sound's gonna carry more so. And that's part of the conversation we've been having as well. One question I have, again, I know you can't answer those, is some of your plans for the newer buildings, I believe, have geothermal wells in there. And I'm assuming it's drilling only, but some of us who live very close by, is there any blasting involved in this? And I don't know, I know there's a lot of granite in the neighborhood I'm up in, it's up on a hill, I understand that. I just wanted to ask the question, because it's a foundation concern, of course. And I think that was really it. Thank you for your time.
You're right on time.
Can I
Thank
make
you.
a quick comment?
Sure.
Some of these, some of these questions that are being asked, I think will be answered in the presentation tonight. And some of them, like the one about geothermal, I think, Chris, when you go over these, you can probably answer some of these, right?
Sure.
And is there anyone online with their hand up? Okay, so,
There's someone else, though, in the back.
yeah, hold on. There is someone, I'm just going to, we were approached by a couple of people who were not able to attend this evening, and had asked us to read letters out loud, and I'm going to let Melissa Massardo, who's online, read those letters to us. And then I'll go back to the audience in live. Melissa.
Hand up
Yeah.
online, Catherine.
Oh, and there's a hand up, too.
Oh, someone has their hand up as well? Okay.
I'll do Melissa first.
We'll do Melissa first, and then the person who has their hand up will take you next, if that's okay.
Hi, can you hear me, Catherine?
Yes, we hear you just fine, thank you.
Okay, great. I wanted to speak up on behalf of a lot of parents that emailed us. I think, unfortunately, the times of these meetings are difficult. I know that as I call in from my sister's house. So I'm gonna read snippets from, I think there's 4 different emails that I have. Dear school building committee members, I'm writing as a concerned parent of 2 BPS students, one in 10th grade and another in 8th grade. My oldest will unfortunately not experience the benefits of a new school, and I am deeply concerned about my younger child spending the next 4 years learning in a construction zone. This process has been delayed far too long, and our students deserve a modern new school. As an educator with 24 years of experience, I have seen firsthand how a learning environment impacts students. Updated technology and a well-designed atmosphere enhance student engagement, motivation, and achievement. Science labs equipped with modern tools provide hands-on experiences that prepare students for real-world application. And while surrounding communities have invested in new high-tech schools, Burlington students have been left behind. A renovation with some new sections is merely a temporary fix, akin to putting lipstick on a pig. Not only does it extend the disruption of learning, but it also simply postpones the inevitable need for a full rebuild. I understand there is a financial cost associated with constructing a new school, but the long-term benefits to students far outweigh the costs. The small additional investment is negligible when considering the lasting impact on education quality, student experience, and the town's future. I emphasize with residents on fixed income who will feel the financial strain. However, this situation is the result of years of inadequate planning. Moving forward, better planning is essential. That being said, our students should not bear the consequences of past delays. They deserve a brand new facility that supports their education and future success. I urge you to prioritize their needs and move forward with a plan that truly benefits Burlington students for generations to come.
Thank you, Melissa. Is there another one?
Yeah. Do you want? Yeah. I'll read this one. This one is
Do you have
long.
the
I'll read
name
it.
on that one,
Highlights.
Melissa?
As our emails, I don't know if they want me to read the names.
Then don't read the
All
email.
right, then we can't read them. Do you have any with names on them?
Sure. This one has a name.
They should have.
Dear school building committee members, I am the current parent of a BHS student. We have 3 children who enrolled in Burlington Public School System in 3rd, 7th, and 9th. I support the new build options with the field relocated to the practice field for Burlington High School because I think it is the best option for our students. These options provide the least amount of disruption for students who will attend Burlington High School and also allows for our students to move in sooner. Due to COVID, their learning environments and experiences have already been disrupted more than any child should have to endure. Additions and renovations are extremely disruptive and are not conducive to a learning environment. Additionally, a new building makes the most financial sense because for a small amount of additional money, we gain with the completely new building. The out-of-pocket difference between the new build and the addition renovation is negligible at best per household. The new buildings provide the best educational layout for our student and the most sustainable building. Burlington deserves a first-class new high school, and our students deserve the best we can do for them. Please do not forget about the students. This is Kimberly Negron.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, and you didn't have any others that had a name on it?
Well, I didn't. I have a few that have names,
okay.
but
We'll go
they didn't
to-
ask.
that's
I
okay.
didn't verify.
We'll go to the next person who had their hand up.
Somebody
you see who that
online
is?
first.
Scott?
Scott Pilot.
Yep.
Yes.
Scott
You're next.
Mindell.
Hi, Scott.
Hi. I'm a parent of a kindergartner and a 3-year-old. I live on 19 Merritt Road, so I'm definitely not in a butter, but still, it's like less than a half-mile walk to get to the school. I just wanted to throw out support for a new building. As some others have mentioned, the prices, spread out over 30 years are relatively similar, whether you're doing a renovation or a new building. And it just seems like having a new building that's been designed, fully for a new space with the 21st century education needs thought of. I just feel like that's a better investment in our community. I and my family run, bike, walk all around the high school areas. So I think investing in a new project would be the best use of the. Any of these options are going to be a lot of money. So we might as well try and spend the money wisest. I'm glad that the committee is working with the abutters, listening to them, because I think that's very important. We don't want to disrespect them. And I also feel like with a newer building, you're not disrupting the students that are there that aren't going to get the new high school. And in middle school, my middle school was being renovated for a asbestos abatement, and it was very disruptive. I mean, obviously, we had to do it in that case, and we weren't building a new school. But if we have the option, and it seems like there are options here, where we can do a new build that doesn't have any disruption to the current students, I feel like that would be the best for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. You were just right on time, too. Thank you. Was there anyone else online? No one else? And then we're getting close to our 15 minutes, but is there someone else in the audience?
When the woman, there's a woman over here that you can't see with a mask.
Oh, she's behind.
Yeah. That's okay.
That's okay.
That
It's hard
was-
for me to, like, I
Ruth-
can't see behind people sometimes, and so.
Ruth,
Yes.
that was your son, right?
No,
It wasn't?
no. He has a third grader and a 3-year-old.
Same name?
Yeah.
Go figure.
Ruth Pilot. I live at 59 Center Street. And unfortunately, I just am getting into this, so I don't know everything. But point of clarification, the debt limit means that it's 100% paid for by taxes, right?
Well,
So
we
I'm
will
also
answer that
a
question.
senior citizen on a fixed income, and I'm not against a new school. I think the kids deserve a new school. My biggest concern is why can't we wait a little bit longer? Because I know we've waited a long time, but the economy, we have no idea what's going to happen. And maybe I'm listening to the wrong television shows, but you know, we don't know what's going to happen. The cost of supplies are going to go up. There's just so many unknowns right now, I think. And I know it's going to take a couple of years anyway to go through to the process, but that was my biggest concern when I first heard about it. I'm like, now? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say something to clarify for her what the debt limit versus the override is?
We can talk about that maybe when we talk about the budget.
All right.
Okay.
Somebody in the back.
Is there,
This-
yes.
Hi, my name's Tom Daniel, Sunset Drive. I have no issue with building a new building on this current site. I think that's the only real viable thing we should do, okay? At the last meeting, we spoke about a mass mailing to inform the general public of everything that's going on. I have yet to see that happen. Why are we delaying that? And furthermore, with all due respect, my opinion, I feel like we're just getting lip service. That the plan has already been designed, and that's the way it's gonna go. One more question. Does the general public get to vote on which options there are? Or is it just the building committee? See, you're shaking your head, that means yes?
It's silly not to answer these questions.
Yeah, so the building committee is formed because we are representing the community, and it's up to us to pare it down to the one option that we will present to the town. So that's how it's always worked. That's the MSBA process.
We don't get it.
So I did want to answer that question, and that's on the
Therefore,
website.
shouldn't the community be informed?
They
You are
will be.
informed.
Communication,
They will be.
not online.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then the mass mailing, there will be a mailing going out. And actually, you'll be the last one, just because we're up to our 15 minutes. And then, and Mimi, if you wanted to make a comment, come on.
I'll just do a quick minute. I'm Zach Farber. Me and my wife, about 3 years ago, moved to College Road in Burlington. One of the reasons that we moved to Burlington was because we saw the future investment in the town. So, and one of the things that we always talked about, without having any knowledge of what was going on behind the scenes, was, wouldn't it be great to have a new school? Like, with a lot of the kids on our road, I think there's like 28 kids on College Road under the age of 10. So it's a huge community of young families, and every single person that I speak to is all supportive of this. So I'll speak on behalf of the people that aren't here and that aren't on the team's call. You know, for me, investing in our children's future is critically important. But on the other side of it, in terms of as an investment, we understand it's going to cost more money, but our home values are all going to go up. It's a more attractive town for people to want to come to bring their skills to. So I just wanted to say I am fully supportive of a new school, and I can tell you that there's a lot of support that, you know, from young parents that are busy that might not have the opportunity to be at meetings like this. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So thank you all. I apologize if you didn't get to come up and speak, but there'll be more public comment later in the meeting. All right, so the next item up is the student engagement.
Mimi had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mimi. Did you have a question or a
no.
statement? Again, not addressing the question
There was
asked.
a resident wanted to make sure that his statement was also read. I was letting Eric know. I don't know procedurally if you want to do this now or not. No.
No, well, we have another public comment section, so if there's a letter that someone would like to have read, you can read that on their behalf. If you have the name at the next public comment.
Meeting?
Next
Okay.
comment, we have another
Next comment,
public
got it.
comment at the end. Okay?
Understood, thank you.
Yes. All right, student engagement?
Yeah, so next thing is thought exchange and student engagement, and I think I'll introduce the thought exchange, which, for those that don't know, you can log on and basically provide your thoughts. It's kind of a will of the group, so how accurate it is remains to be seen, but coupling with that, we did have a student engagement session that I think one of the members of the audience referenced last week that Chris will take you through, but I'll just, you know, this was as of March 10th. It can change based on as and when people respond, but I'll just read it. This is generated by AI. I don't know who that is, but apparently he's making quite an impression on all of our communities. So the responses reflect a range of opinions on the proposed high school project. Many favor renovation options like AR2 and AR8, citing cost effectiveness, minimal disruption to neighbors, and the preservation of existing facilities. Concerns include the financial burden on taxpayers, especially seniors, and the potential noise and traffic impact on nearby residents if the varsity field is relocated. Some advocate for a new building, emphasizing long-term value in modern facilities, while others stress the importance of maintaining the current field location to avoid neighborhood disruption. Overall, there is a strong call for careful consideration of costs, community impact, and educational benefits. So my editorial is AI seems to have nailed it as to what we are faced with. So, but without further ado, do you want to talk about the student engagement that we did last week, which was, I think we had about 15 kids attend this open block, but I'll be quiet.
No worries. Yeah, so we met with the students, and we've been trying to organize this for a little bit of time, and it finally materialized for it's called Flex Block, I think. So what we did is we brought sort of a condensed presentation to the students that were with us. I started by asking this question of what is one word to describe your current high school building. If you know how word cloud works, kids can submit to it, and the more times a word is repeated, it gets bigger and bigger in the cloud. And so this is a screenshot of that. Actually, our student representative on this committee, Zach, was in attendance, and so I'll give him a second in just a moment to, in your own words, describe how you felt and what your fellow students thought as well. If you can go to the next slide. And then we asked about sort of hope, a question about what do you hope will be included in the new high school. I think you ask high schoolers those and you get high school answers. So, anything from lockers to pools on a third floor and things like that. It's fun. I think they enjoyed the process. They enjoyed questions. You can go to the next slide. I think it has some leftover there too, even characterizations of keep the cool bunker from the 1960s. So, that's their words. And then at the sort of tail end of this, after we walked through all the plans and options, we asked the students, like, where do these options rank in your mind? And and they each individually could rank in real time, and these options kind of went up and down until they were done. And the student ranking was AR8. And so with that being said, I think you can, with that being said, I think I'll let Zach talk a little bit about his experience with this.
Can you move the mic a little bit?
Thank you.
All right, well, Bob's not here.
Thank you. So for one, I'm sure many of them were very grateful for like this opportunity to like voice their concerns and opinions, and I mean, feeling heard was definitely, I think, of great benefit to a lot of them. I remember like after it, many of the people who attended described it as a good way to like just get more of like an idea, because they didn't feel like they had like a good knowledge of what goes on at these meetings and what the options were being discussed. As evident on that slide, AR8 was clearly very popular, and I mean, a lot of the main issues were the windows was a main concern, and AR8 seems to address them, but I think it overall was a success, and I think a large portion of the student body is grateful for like such an opportunity.
Thank you, Zach. Do you
Thanks, Zach.
prefer Zach or Zachary?
Either is fine. Zach is.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I like Catherine to Kathy, so yeah, I asked.
I heard him say Zach earlier, so I was
No, I
banking
only
on the
asked
fact that
because
was going
I
to be
wanted
okay.
address him properly. Go ahead.
So our next, we're obviously trying to keep engaging with the students as much as possible. I'm actually going to be joining an architecture class in the high school on the 27th, and it'll be an interesting time for us to talk about architecture, the architecture profession generally, and what they're learning and how that crosses over, generally speaking. But then they also have ideas and thoughts, and they were really intrigued about the 3D model that we've printed. And so all of that kind of stuff plays into building excitement and awareness about a project that is for students, maybe some of them not for them, but future students walking in their shoes. And so with that, I'll transition to kind of project updates. Your packages have, and these slides will be available online for the community to review and download. I will start with the preface that the options haven't changed really that much. We haven't been tweaking or changing the options since we submitted things to the cost estimators. The new images you're seeing, like the one on the screen right now, which is the actual first page that's printed in front of you, are just different ways to look at a building when you're thinking about what it has and what it doesn't have. This particular method of looking at buildings is called an exploded axon. It's where you take the massing of the model and you just bring it out into 3 dimensions, but then you also extrude it up so that you can see floor plate to floor plate how they align, but also see it in 3 dimensions. And speaking of architecture class, this is a fun way to look at buildings, a fun way to digest what's going on, and that correlates with the site plan that you see there. I understand that some of this takes a bit of a learned eye to understand, so you just need to look at them for a little bit. I'm not going to go into it. If you want to catch me after the meeting, and I can kind of give you a little bit more pointer on that, but I think it's an interesting way to look at it. What I want to spend more time on for each of these options is clarity around phasing and pros and cons. I think that's been something you've heard from abutters and other people that you want some of the clarity on. So with AR2, sorry about the microphone. With AR2, what you see in front of you, we currently see that as a 3-phase project, and I will also just caveat these with we're pretty sure this is how these could work out. And when you're doing phasing and logistics, it's like you're taking a shot at your kind of proof of concept. Can this work in the order we're showing it? And then when later, Terry's going to talk to you about CM at risk procurement for projects, and that's where you bring on a construction builder during design, and then they will help us fine tune these with a lot more level of expertise that builders have that Terry and I just don't. And so this is based on, decades of experience in school building and all of the things that come with that. And so phase one on AR2, the big thing to consider and question here is that you have to bring the auditorium and music wings offline of the building, which means those functions are happening somewhere else, either in this building or not. I don't know where you put, all the people that go in the auditorium for an auditorium type event in this building, except for the auditorium. So maybe it goes down the street to Marshall Simon, or maybe there's a way to make the gyms host that many people. But suffice it to say, the auditorium would be gone for pretty much the duration of the entire project, until it's built in the last phase, which is, you can see phase 2B is the last sort of new construction phase of addition. The first phase is 24 months. There was someone talking about the advocacy of getting students into the building in 24 months, and I think AR2 does that. I think AR8 also does that. Some of the logistics and constraints are that you would be moving, like while the students are in the building. These are the reality of having construction zones tied right next to a building are just things to consider. I'm not the one that should tell you whether it's good or bad. I just need to advise you that those are realities. And sometimes, as you've heard with one of the educators that spoke a minute ago, it creates challenges that need to be thought of. So the idea is that you take the auditorium off, you build the new construction, we can swing students into that new construction, and then this phase 2A is demolish the middle of the building that makes way for us to do the... Okay. Apparently there's an open house going on. And in phase 2B, we see that we're shifting to a primarily renovation phase with an addition of, with this small addition, which includes the auditorium and cafeteria. And then the final phase 3 is the renovation of what we've been calling the non-high school education components on what the end of the building you're sitting in currently. Relative to pros and cons, I will read them because it's small on the screen. The pros are they preserve existing gyms in high school or for high school use. There's a separate public and private space for security. It maintains existing student lot and varsity field. Layout allows for classroom pods by grade or subject. So that's kind of an educational planning idea there. And it's simplified and direct circulation between core academics and the special education components. Some of the cons that we've identified are it's the most disruptive construction phasing because it has to pull off that phase of the building first in order to build, which is followed up by that second point. Auditorium is off-site during construction or on-site if you can find a place for it. You lose the music in classrooms, cafeteria, and potentially the BECC component. This is where things get a little tricky because there's a phase where you've moved students. There's a moment where you've moved students and you have to vacate the cafeteria in order to move BECC in order to demolish that center of the building. So there's this like little tricky spot there that would require either an off-site solution for BECC or a different lunch delivery solution for the high school. And that's something we would talk to you about in more depth if you end up choosing that route. And that's adjusted. Those operations would need to be adjusted for like a 12 to 15 month period while we capture that scope of work. New music and drama rooms would have no exterior views. I don't like that, but it is also something that happens often in schools, is that the music and back of performing arts sometimes don't get natural daylight. But we're highlighting that here. There are some level changes in this scheme because of the way that it intersects with the existing building. Not as much as you have now, but there are a couple. And then we're just noting the congested circulation because it's a dead-end concept scheme where usually if you're going to have a dead end, it's a shorter length of wing instead of the entire length being what we're showing here. It is 3 stories. And then, yeah, so in orientation, you'll hear us talk about that. It's not the end of the world, but the orientation faces really a really tough direction for the classrooms that are kind of on the bottom of this diagram. Also on this sheet, you'll see the breakout of square footage and how it relates to the gross square footage both for high school program and then the non-high school program. We're breaking that out in a little bit more clarity there. That'll come back up later in the discussion, so hang on to that idea. Let's go to AR8. Go right into the phasing. So AR8 is also conceived to be about a 3-phase project. The AR2 we're projecting potentially to be 48 months until actually complete, contractors offsite complete. AR2 was slightly less than that, about 42. And it's still a 24-month new construction build on the addition side. So as was mentioned earlier, students into a new reality in terms of their classroom zones would be about 24 months, but the reality of living with construction on site is the full 42. So that's one of the, it's actually, just for comparison's sake, it's one of the differentiators between building down on Varsity Field and building here is that you can completely segregate those things. So when the students move to the new building, it is a move to the new building and there's no more construction happening in that zone. And so it's a kind of bigger separation. Both can happen. I'm not here to tell you which one is better than the other, but those are facts. So so phase 1 is about 24 months. Phase 2, again, demolishes the middle of the building. We're proposing at this time keeping the auditorium online and making it a renovation. It has a lot of accessibility hardships and just needs an update as well. So, but otherwise, as Millie had suggested, there's a lot of good bones in the building. And then phase 3 is that non-high school component being renovated into the program that we need it to be. Some of the pros and cons of AR8 are that it preserves the existing gyms, again, maintains existing student lots and Varsity Field, continued use of the auditorium during most of construction, and that is a big differentiator between AR2 and AR8. Some of the cons are the disruptive construction. Existing auditorium, as I said, requires a lot to make it accessible. This does have a lot more level changes than AR2, but we are able to mitigate some of that with the new building. It's mostly in the existing building that remains. If you go from the auditorium down to the gyms, it's currently how it is and it won't change really. So we're having to use the new building to kind of mitigate that a little bit. As currently drawn, there's a bit of a circulation inefficiency with the travel distances, but I think if you chose to run with AR8, we may take a stab at sort of revising this layout just a bit. It won't fundamentally change the idea of AR8 and the location, but we would try to get that a little bit more aggressively efficient for you. There's a cafeteria on the bottom level. There's a lot of site work, so just to pause there, there's the question about blasting, and I don't foresee us needing to do any blasting with these schemes right now. I do think that the geotech borings that we have right now kind of indicate good soils, good bearing soils, so we don't have any like deep foundations or basements or anything like that. I do think we might run into some outcroppings in places. I can't tell you where all the ledge is until we strip the top layer of dirt off and we find ledge. But what I can tell you is that most of these options are at a level of being commensurate with the existing grade. So if we're going down into find ledge or something, it's likely a braking operation, not a blasting operation. And the difference between that is it's a big excavator with a hammer arm on it, and it just like breaks away at the rock until they get it out of the way where they need it, and then they just carry their foundations and things moving forward.
Chris, there was a specific question about whether geothermal boring would require ledging, blasting.
Yeah, so the way I interpreted the question was assumed something was required for geothermal, and is it required for the building? So on the building side, that's the answer. For geothermal, it's a drill. So
Just
it's
a
pretty,
drill, no
it's
blast.
pretty quiet. It's a drill down, and they run the tubes and back up. But it is an earth process, so. It's the minimum. So what happens if whatever project you guys choose, there'll be a geothermal test well that we dig to find out how deep all the wells need to be, and they've been anywhere from 5 to 1,200 feet on other projects. So it's a range. We have to figure that out for this site. So.
Thank you.
Where was I? It's 4 stories on the back. There's a courtyard in this. I'd like to try to work on that a little bit. There's also an orientation issue, and some volumetric things that go along with modern high schools that aren't the end of the world, but we're just trying to highlight all the things we can think of. That's AR 8.
Can I ask a question?
Ms.
Can you
Harris?
just comment on the cafeteria during this project?
Oh, so this one's different than AR2 in that we're able to build the cafeteria as part of this first phase.
Right.
And then when the students flip into occupy the school itself in the newly built portion, it frees up the cafeteria in the existing building, which allows BECC to move in directly. There's no sort of operational concern around the cafeteria for this option.
Could I just ask a follow-up?
Yes.
So during the building of this new wing, students would be traveling up to the cafeteria?
No. When this is being built,
Yeah.
it's an isolated build,
Yep.
and this building would remain functional exactly as it is today.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Any other meeting?
Chris, could you just comment a little bit about what you mean by, I lost my space here. The auditorium requires renovation to be made accessible. How long do you anticipate the auditorium not being accessible? The music program here is robust, and the kids involved in it benefit greatly from it, and so I know that would be front and center on the minds of parents of kids who are involved.
Right. So when we say it needs to be a lot of work to be able to make it accessible, it's for like handicapped accessibilities and things like that. I think the way the auditorium and music area is going to shake out is probably 2 separate what we call summer slammers. So when you've got a big renovation and addition project, you can start one, and then if this is 24 months, then you've got a summer in the middle. They'd probably tackle some of that scope in that summer when students aren't here, and then move the students in, and then at the second summer, we would tackle the rest of it and try to do it as minimally as we can, minimally shutdown wise. But again, that's one thing that you get to see them on board, and they may have different opinions, but recognizing these are the kind of strengths we would tell people, or tell the contractors when we're developing the project, is to say, it's really important for that to be open for town meeting, or that to be open for concerts or whatever. And so we would work with them on a schedule with the school and the superintendent to know what that schedule is and when we can shut it down and not, and try to break out the scopes of work so that it works.
Ms. Monaco has a
Chris,
question.
in order to rehab the cafeteria to take the BECC, would that be another summer slammer? I mean, you got to change it into classrooms.
Yeah, it's a lot of square footage, and so and it's also expanding. It's giving you more space for BECC, which is one of the things when we went through that programming, they said, we could use more space and.
Is it really more space?
It is.
Good.
And so part of the strategy was, yes, I think we can do a summer slammer, but I think it's going to be half the scope, which is your current space, roughly, and then move them in and then get the other half. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of moving parts, and it's not.
Take 2 summers.
I think it would take 2 summers, but that first one's got to be done so that you can get them out
I know.
and make space to demolish the center of the building. So.
Wow, a lot of manipulation.
It's a lot. So let's go to NC1. NC1 is a shorter phasing proposition because, again, you don't have to start with demolishing, and you're not rebuilding in the middle as much. And so we're able to, this is where the new options may have some benefit or some phasing, benefits over ad renos, is that you can separate the construction zones, build them, and then deal with the existing building however you need to do that. But phase 1 is set up your construction area, build the new building. Phase 2 would be about demolishing the center of the building and renovating the upper non-high school portion. And then the last phase is renovating the gyms so that they have all the things that you need there. Where's my, oh, there, pros and cons. The pros list is, next page. This project in general is it not on there?
Did you want to go through the phases?
I think it skipped a slide, yeah, I just did the phases, I thought, but it's 3 phases, 36 months total. But there's a slide, I think, missing up here that I have that is talking about the pros and cons. We'll make sure that's on the website whenever we, I think the committee has the pros and cons, though. We'll make sure that's on the website when it's posted. But the pros are pretty short because this building is really tight, and it's not a great, personally speaking and professionally speaking from an architect's perspective. The whole thing is being driven by wetland setbacks, and so when that is your starting point, you end up with a school that's not sort of purpose built for education and students. And so I don't think it's pushing you in the right direction as an architect goes. But so the pros are it maintains the existing varsity field. So that's that, and it gives you a new building. I guess we could add that to it as well. Some of the cons are constrained site because of the wetlands. Like I said, you lose student parking lot during construction. That's a big deal. We don't have a good solution for where that would end up. It does end up being 4 stories. It's really close to Arlington Road at the sort of knuckle where it bends, the building that is. And the gym on this one is for PE purposes and non-tournament competitions. And I just want to be clear about that all of the new options have gyms that are appropriate for full-size basketball court, full-size volleyball court, full-size anything that you need to do in those gyms. But the differentiator is that they just don't have enough seating to hold an MIA tournament, late round tournament, which requires 1,500 seating capacity, 12 to 1,500 seating capacity. That's one of the MIA rules. So we're sizing the PE spaces, we're calling them PE in the new options, so that the schools can be fully functional as a school that offers all of the PE and athletic components that it needs, but then any competition sports would need to walk down to the field house, which would remain and get renovated. So that's
True.
Catherine.
I'm sorry. Yes, Doug.
So, just really clearly, because it is confusing, and it's confusing for me, and so I know all the stuff I'm seeing around town. It's not just MIA tournaments, though. There won't be bleachers. You won't be able to host the things that we host on a regular basis in the current gymnasiums, you would still count on those. So the gyms you're building, that would hold a full basketball court. You're not gonna even have, not a late round tournament, but would you have your regular basketball and volleyball seasons there with bleachers and people
think you
there?
could, yeah.
Would you have a full school, you know, it'll be big enough to.
Yeah.
If we didn't have those other gyms, the only thing we'd be losing is we can't host a late round tournament.
Yeah, I think.
Locker rooms.
Yes, locker rooms, changing rooms, those things, and then we would have. Right now, the seating counts are probably in the 500 to 700 range in bleachers, but then you have space like for seating on the court and stuff. If you're doing an assembly and you need all 1,100 students in there, you could just put out the chairs and have all the 1,100 students in there. So
And we're still keeping our current
yeah,
gyms
your
that we
current gyms
have.
stay. Yeah,
And they'll be renovated, so you
Yes.
still get that full renovation.
no loss there.
Yeah, so Doug, you'd have seating only on one side, right? And you'd have those accordion bleachers, right? The
Yeah.
other side is gonna be like a padded wall. So it's a smaller gymnasium. Yes, it can seat people, but to the extent you knew you were gonna have more than 500 people, you'd wanna move.
Can the people in the audience hear these comments?
We're just making sure.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
If you need us to speak
so the
up.
microphone's working.
Yes, okay.
and
Ms.
just one,
Doug, yes.
to
and then-
follow up, the other point of information or clarification would be, and I think we keep confusing people because you listed as a pro that, well, you do get a brand-new building. But what are you defining as a brand-new building versus what you just did on AR2 and AR8?
It's
I
a
mean, I feel like we
standalone.
get a brand-new building on every.
Yeah. I have a slide in a second that addresses that, but it's a standalone. What people typically associate with a new building is a new separate facility, even though ad renos can achieve that, and the new construction of an ad reno is new space, right? So I think that's if you hear us say a new build, it's a separate facility, not attached to anything existing.
Right, but so I just think as a committee, we need to be careful, and for the community, because what we're hearing in the community is, we don't want to do those renovations because we don't want to put students in an old building, this lipstick on a pig. And really, all you're doing is talking about touching the gym. And if you put a walkway between it, would that be considered a new building? Because I don't see a single classroom or academic space that's renovated in any of these.
Right, so,
Right.
and we
that's
do,
concern-
yep.
But that's concerning, because
Yeah,
that's
no,
gonna
and
kill this whole
I
program.
completely understand that, and I think we're guilty of being sort of immersed in the MSBA world of that's how they label
What you
things.
call- yeah, I think it's a labeling issue,
And
which
we
is-
do have a slide here that's going to demonstrate how new the ad renos actually are, and you know, I always and selfishly I'll give examples when I think, oh, I'm gonna do an ad reno, I'm gonna put a sunroom on my house. Well, that's not what we're doing. We're basically building a house and attaching it to a sunroom. And so it's just it's nomenclature, and you're absolutely right. They are new options. They do the renos, the ad renos, add on to some existing space. A new option does not. And that's the distinction, and we're going to try and clarify that, I think, in a slide that Chris has in a little bit once he gets through his other.
Didn't mean to jump ahead.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
and it's
No.
a great question, and we're guilty of using nomenclature that is ingrained in us, unfortunately, and so apologies.
Right, and again, that's why we've added the slide, because we've been listening to people, so, Martha?
I wanted to ask, you referenced in this NC1 option, the gym. Oh, you told us not to move them. Yeah, okay.
We're moving the mics, Bob.
Is that better? Does that work? No? All right. How's that? Is that better? All right. When you referenced the gym in the NC1, you explained how it would be a full-size basketball court, but it wouldn't, it would have a wall on one side of it and bleachers on the other. Is that true for NC4 and NC5 as well? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But all three of those options include that we're going to continue to have the two gyms that we have now that's currently in this building? Okay, thank you.
These would be, I mean, the new buildings are net adds on your gym space, say it that way. Okay.
Could I ask?
Amy, yeah.
So, I can't remember if it was the last meeting or the one before that, but there was some substantive discussion about what each of these plans would do in terms of the morning and afternoon commutes. And as I recall, for NC1, there was significant concern raised about bottleneck near, is that Arlington Road over here? This area? Arlington is here.
Sort of right at that. Okay.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking, I think it would be helpful for all of us trying to make decisions about these plans, if you could comment on what traffic flow would look like. With this plan, it seems to me that perhaps it would be particularly challenging, but I don't see it there under the cons. And that may be because it's not, but if you could speak to that, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think if you turn back to this page in your packet, get the site plan.
22.
Why is it jumping around? I want the site plan for AR8. Thank you. Sorry, NC1, that's what we're talking about. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, so in this scheme, the site plan image, and these have been provided to you in a bigger scale before, which is why we kind of are condensing things from other presentations. But in this one, folks would come in on the access road, and then the idea is that the buses have a dedicated bus drop-off on the front side of the building, which faces Arlington Road. The knuckle of the building where it bends, and the sort of moment where the buses is right directly in front of where Arlington Road intersects with the access road currently. And so that's kind of that would be probably the biggest pinch point. What I think would happen in this option is the cars would continue to go around, and you can see the orange circulation route on the that goes through where the center of the school is right now, and that's where the cars would separate, drop off, loop back around, and then come out, I think, the same way they came in. There's a tighter road that goes around the back of this proposed building that I think would be a more kind of service type road, less available for continuous use. But in terms of parking, I think that this drive road, I think it does probably create challenges that don't make things better from what they are today. But again, this isn't the final site plan either. So if this was the desired solution, we actually have we've revised the site plans quite a lot, meeting with the site logistics working group. We've done a lot of work on these site plans to try to get them better. And so I think, can there still be some room to go? Yes, but I think the reality is here that putting the building entry, the face of the front entry, that close to Arlington Road in that location is going to produce some pinch point challenges.
I think that might be helpful to be on the cons. As a consideration. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay, going to NC4. It's a 36-month project. Again, we think that the new building can be done in about 2 years. It is an isolated construction build. Once it's complete and the students and faculty are moved in, then we can demolish the middle of the building and then do 2 phases of renovation and site work at the existing building to finish out the site. It's a fairly straightforward idea. I just knocked my nameplate off. Some of the pros of this one, and again, I mean, you know, we're trying to list these. We can add more if that comes, like Mimi just suggested. But I don't think it's exhaustive to be, these aren't intended to be exhaustive lists of either the pros or the cons, just some quick highlights that we've come up with. But the pros of both NC4 and NC5 are going to be that they are the least disruptive to school activities. But as one of the commenters said, it is quite disruptive for the athletics side of it. So that is something we should probably add as a con, just listening. And then, you know, we wrote new school, but we'll clarify what that means on here. The better, it has good program adjacencies. So one of the things that sort of comes about when you get a wide open blank slate to do a school is that we can start to shape things from scratch and not have to deal with a building that needs to be built around in phases to create swing space, because you can't just put the whole thing where you want it. That is fundamentally why ad renos are labeled ad renos and new buildings are labeled new buildings, because even an ad reno that is a lot new is built around a constraint that already exists. And so that's kind of one of the things in our heads as designers why the ad reno kind of is labeled that way, if that helps clarify some of that labeling. But new construction, better program adjacencies, level floor plates, maintains the student lot. The cons are the varsity field problem, it relocates it. It's actually gone for a while. That's unless we find that we can do the after the NRAD that we can put something in the practice field area, then we would actually be able to build some of that simultaneously, and or maybe even as an early package before we take the one offline. But again, that wouldn't include track, so there's a continued problem with track. There's this one in particular creates some circulation considerations with foot traffic and flow inside the building between the far ends of the wings. And then athletics, as I said, and the list could be added on more and more as you go. NC5, it's really the same phasing program that I just talked about for NC4, so I don't know if we need to keep spending time on that. Then the pros and cons are pretty much the same. The one different here is that we have, this is the first option that really is kind of built around using sustainable design tenets as sort of its main, sustainable design tenets in education as the main like goals in order to give proper orientation, proper sunlight, proper, all of those things that help buildings function well in a world where we need buildings to use less energy and cost less on day one. And so in terms of like, if you have a building with poor orientation, you may have to add solar glare limiters or shades or things like that on the outside to help control that. This wouldn't have those, but there's other cost gives and takes. So so that's the pros and cons of that.
Question.
Yes, Ms. Moher. Oh, Chris.
So for this NC5, shouldn't courtyard maintenance be on the con list if it is for AR8?
Sure.
Question? Oh, you have a question?
Yeah, as far as using, like solar panels and the green factor, which of these options is optimal?
It's going to be AR, probably AR5.
Better than 4?
Sorry, we don't have an AR5, we have an NC5. My gosh, I'm sorry, forgive me.
What is it, AR what?
NC5, and the reason is that the floor plate has a bit more roof area on it that's contiguous, like big chunks of roof versus winged roof. And the winged roof, what happens with solar is you kind of got to break it out by module and then give enough room between them to walk and maintain and all that stuff. So when you get a big area, you can start to develop bigger areas. So it's just a bit more efficient.
The classrooms in this one are situated in such a way that you avoid the glare?
Yes, that's one of the
Therefore,
big
the
ideas.
shades or whatever.
Yep, the external fins or something like that.
Yeah.
You need to avoid windows that face east or west because that's when the sun is low and coming blasting into the windows.
Right.
And so when you get them north or south, then the sun's high, and the natural shape of the buildings and things keeps that from happening.
So in the ad renos that we have, to what extent is that a problem? What are the directions?
They are both AR8 and AR2 have east-west facing portions and then sort of southeast and northwest facing. So it's kind of, they're not good orientations, but it's not the end of the day.
Yeah,
I'm just
you gotta-
highlighting a difference that some of the cost that goes into making that not a problem are already assumed with these. But there are architectural things we can do as we shape the building more in schematic design to help alleviate that, but we're already kind of baking those ideas into these options.
Okay.
Doug?
So when we look at NC 4 and 5 on Varsity Field, they're tall, but Varsity Field is down from Cambridge Street level. So if you were standing on Cambridge Street looking at the building, approximately what floor would you be looking at?
If you're on, so it's, in this diagram, the right-hand side of the image is lower than the left-hand side. And so if you're on the left-hand side where it says Cambridge Street, where the S is, looking at the building, in this one, you're probably looking at floor 2.5, somewhere in the middle. Same with 5. It's right there. Actually, 5 engages, the idea is that it engages with that area right there. The site plan doesn't show the inspiration, but we want that to actually kind of bleed out towards Cambridge Street and create a more city-type engagement, and rather than just a field next to the side of a building. I want that to feel like it addresses Cambridge Street a little bit better. If we're gonna plug that spot on Cambridge Street, let's not just give it the side or the back of the building. That's my
Right,
point.
I just don't want to give it a field of solar panels either.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if
It'll be
you're
higher than
driving
that.
down, I don't
Yeah.
want the thing you see of the high school as a wall of solar panels. The high
That's fair.
school's down
That's
below.
fair. I think it'll be
Classy guys, they
higher.
don't do that.
It'll be higher than the field of the average person's field of view from that end of the
And I
building.
think at our last presentation, I don't remember if it was the abutters meeting or if it was the community meeting before, I can't remember which, or the meeting after, but we also showed,
Yeah.
the perspective you were asking, what it would look like from the street level or whatever. Was that at the
Well, I think
abutters meeting or was
we
it
saw
the
it from
meeting the day
Dottie
after?
Way, but I don't think we saw it from Cambridge.
Yeah.
We saw it from Dottie Way, but we didn't see it from.
No, he did show Cambridge
Yeah.
Street.
Oh, okay.
He did
I'm
show
the- okay.
Cambridge Street, yeah. I distinctly remembered
missed
that because
that,
I was
sorry.
trying to determine, like you, like how high was it gonna
What we're
be?
gonna be
Yeah,
looking at.
exactly.
And those are hard too, because those weren't taken from the ground surface necessarily, like the camera was up higher. So we can generate a view with 5'6" eye level that looks, we can generate the very specific nature that you're asking about. But okay, should I keep going?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so, next on the list is potential discussion about,
Oh, I've got a lot more.
you're not done yet? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, cost. Oh,
So.
I have to push my slides.
So we do have updated cost information. These are sort of fresh off the whatever you call the machine that bakes
Fresh off the
costs,
press.
from the cost estimator, third-party cost estimator, who is probably the cost estimator on a majority of the schools in the state, or one way or the other is involved with them. I'm starting here with the renovation only. It's the top row in your spreadsheet. And the reason we covered up the other stuff is because I need to back into some of these numbers for you so that I'm trying to make it as clear as we can. The renovation only includes 293,000 square feet, and I'm not going to read the numbers on the right side of the column, or the comma, on these because it'll be too much.
Didn't we get rid of that option?
I have to back into what.
Oh, all right.
Just showing it as a
So
comparison so you understand.
It's 293,000 of renovation and 68,000 of non-high school space, and for a total of 361,690 square feet in your building. That estimate is $330 million to do the renovation, and it continues to be $330 million to do that renovation. There was really no scope creep. Because we, A, took it off the table, but B, didn't. There's no more things you can do to it. And then there's a
Madam
question.
Chair,
Oh,
if
yes.
I may, does that include the cost of modulars?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
that's one of the reasons it's expensive.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, and then if you go to the next slide, David. All right, so here's AR2 and AR8. One of the things that I'm first going to talk to you about is the assumptions we had when we did PDP cost estimates. That you remember at that time when we sent these out, we were including various bits of non-high school space in each of the options, and we said, how much do you want? How much do you not want? These aren't apples to apples. As of November 11th, you guys had made a choice that said all options have to include the non-high school space. And so at that point in time, some of these estimates were already sort of out of whack because we hadn't previously included all of the non-high school space. So the left-hand column, the left-hand side of PDP numbers is trying to show you the difference, like between AR2 and AR8. There's a 46,000 square foot difference between those two projects because we had assumed certain things in one and didn't assume them in others, and tried to really get at what are we including in the project, and that's the conversation we had on November 11th. And then when we got to the finalized space summary for the high school, what was needed, and the directive to include all 9 non-high school spaces, we were able to level out most of the programs to be in a pretty tight range. So you can see in the PSR, the blue square footage range, all of the program elements are kind of in that 360 to 370. The one outlier is AR2 because we were able to include certain program elements into some spaces that are coming offline and make up some space in that option. So AR2 went from 313 to 319 million. The biggest difference of all of these was actually AR8 because it had included so little non-high school space in it to begin with. Like if you go back and look at the diagrams, we were actually demolishing this end of the entire building and only keeping the gyms and adding AR8, the currently conceived AR8. And so when we leveled those out with the directive of this committee on November 11th, it came out to 364,000 square feet, and brought the number for that option up to 334 million as currently estimated. You can go to the next slide. When we talk about the AR2 and AR8 option, it's important for us to understand when we say things like upper portion to remain, lower portion to remain. This is the diagram that you can refer to. The right-hand side is the upper portion, which is this end of the building. On, the left-hand side, or the blue tones, are the lower end of the building, which is the gyms, and then the auditorium, which only is applicable for the AR8 option. But this kind of shows you the overlap of spaces and how we're seeing those in terms of the numbers that are represented on that that spreadsheet that you're seeing right there. Like you'll notice it says Reno lower building. That's the blue side. The Reno non-high school upper building, that's the yellow side. That's the right. So we're trying to make all these keys and plans match together for you so you can understand what square footage is where. And again, most of you probably just want to focus on the total, which is totally fine too. But that's the difference in the cost there with that. You can go to the next slide. Okay, Doug, here's your slide. Okay. What I wanted to do is I started to, so technically, if you read the backup for these cost estimates, you're going to see that the stated new versus reno on the cost estimates for these add reno options is something like 60-40. 60% new, 40% save, something in that range. But that's on a square footage basis, and that's skewed because you have when you're talking about the education component, when people say we want a new school, it's talking about all the space you're using for non-high school spaces. It's talking about the gyms. All of that stuff comes to play into it as well. So what I wanted to do is say program speaking. And I think this is what, Doug, you were getting at. Program speaking, when you're talking about core academics or science labs or special education or art, look at the right-hand column and look how many things are actually 100% new in these AR2 and AR8 options. And so call it semantics, call what labeling issues, call it what you want, but this diagram tells you what you're getting new versus what you're getting reno in terms of program space. And I think it's going to be really helpful for you all and your neighbors and community to really understand that, you know, like Doug's saying, when you say new, is it okay to say new and get an ad reno when 100% of the classrooms in science and special ed and art and those things are new? Does that check the box for new or does it not? And that's for you all to debate, but we wanted to give you the data sheets to kind of represent that from a programmatic perspective on how that breaks out.
Can we find that somewhere? We don't.
Resend it with all
It didn't get printed out here, but it's in this and it'll be posted and we can make it available for
All
you.
right, I can't find it in the presentation.
It's not in the one that
It's
got
not in
where
this
it got emailed to us. It's not in
presentation
the
All
that
right.
they had online.
No, we don't have that or this one in tonight's
that was
computer
on purpose.
presentation.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it's on,
It's not in what was emailed.
no.
Okay.
Right.
We'll get that fixed for you.
Yeah, it's just hard to, we
Yeah,
can't
you need to
see it.
sit with it for a little bit. I can't
No, I mean, it's too,
it took us,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
actually, I know
that's the
why. So
problem.
when, what was emailed didn't have the cost information in it, so
Yeah.
so that's the issue, sorry. That's my,
Doug, you're close enough, you can see it.
Yes, I can.
Rest of us will wing it for now.
I'm in a meeting. That's why I'd like to.
okay, so suffice it to say, to the point that was made earlier, the AR2, AR8 actually have a substantial amount of new school space that we can label those as new school space. It's just that they're associated with an existing building and constrained, their shape and form and response is constrained around the existing conditions that we have to build around in order to make them viable spaces. So they are still new. They're still, this diagram tells you the story. So hopefully that's helpful. It was for us when we were making them. And I think you just got to kind of sit with it for a little bit. This last opening here is showing the scope for the prices for the new options. And again, these are all going to end up being pretty similar in size. The difference on the difference on some of these is around the new square footage on the high school component because we're not putting as much into it, relying on, this is for NC1, relying on the existing building a little bit more. So that's why the whole idea around NC1 was that we could make a separate facility that was kind of relying on the one that's close to it and next to it. And so it was sort of like like to Doug's point earlier, it's a new building, just separated a little bit more. And what's the difference between AR2 and AR8 that are new buildings that aren't separated as much, right? And so, so to that end, you can see the square footage for NC1 actually lines up a little bit better with the AR options than it does in terms of new high school space. Instead of the absolute complete new schools down on Varsity Field, which are 207,000 for new high school space. But the non-high school and lower renovated portions are all the same, so. The totals are, I'll just read them out for the sake of the record, but they are 321 million for NC1, 348 for NC4, and 346 million for NC5. So effectively, you know, you're between AR2 and averaged out on NC5s, you're in the range of 20 to, 25 million differential between those, the lowest to the highest, right? And so, and those new options have all the things in them. They have site work. There was a comment earlier on the traffic going in and around. One of them, they are slightly different. The NC 5 option, actually working with the site logistics group, we actually moved the student lot to the other side of the road to alleviate that, and we wanted to get the pricing difference between those.
Does that cost include moving the parking lot to the other side of the road?
Yeah. Yep. And the operating assumption that there can be a football field with stadium features down in the practice area, and the track would be up here in the existing building. All options also, just for level's sake, include bathroom facilities and concession down at the varsity field, no matter what you choose. So we tried to include that scope in all of them.
Is that included?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It does, but can I just touch on that? So yes, they all do. And at the time, we were told to put bathrooms and concessions. I think subsequent to that, we've had additional discussions about if you look at the end of the track that's closest to the road where you enter from Cambridge Street, I think originally there was plans for a field house. I think one of our tasks that we've been asked to do is to look at that. So in any of AR2 or 8, it does not include a field house. Presently, that field house would have locker rooms, bathrooms, so that would be an additional cost to those. We have not included that.
That was my question.
And so that is.
So the concession stands and the bathrooms were included, but the addition of our saying, like, locker rooms, et cetera.
Correct.
Was not quoted in this. So I want to make sure that's clear to everybody, that
So-
we're
But it
going
would
to add
affect-
that in.
Can you say that again? And which options it is and isn't?
So let me see if I can help you. Every option includes adding the restroom facilities and concession stand at Varsity Field. That's what was known to us when we sent for cost estimates.
So that's for AR2,
It's every option.
8. Well, yes, assuming that with NC4 and 5,
It's
there's a
built
new
new.
field somewhere else and there's concessions and a bathroom added.
Yeah.
I can assure you that with NC4 or 5, I find it highly unlikely we'll have a field house out in where the new football field
Yeah.
would go. So.
Yeah. So then after we had submitted cost estimates and got them back, there was a discussion about, we probably should have a team room.
Yeah.
For the teams and things. And that just expands that scope a little bit for AR2 if that was to happen at the existing varsity field. But it's a linear effect, so it affects like if you apply it to one, you got to apply it to all. So it's like if it goes up for everybody. It's not a differentiator between AR2 and AR8.
So, so I guess what just a way to clarify it is if we choose an add reno / new construction, that we would, part of what we would add to that is the bathrooms and the concession, and then we still need to get the quote to build the
Correct.
locker room as
Right.
part of that deal,
Right.
to satisfy, trying to get the best that we can out of this project. Okay.
And all of these include, just so you know, all of these project costs include the construction costs that we got from the estimators, escalation, soft cost, which is like designer fees, engineer fees, OPM fees, all the testing, all of the things that are required to actually pull a project off but aren't the hard trade cost of construction. They include owner contingencies, so any change orders that you may assume there. And there is a line item in these that is called design and pricing contingency that's kind of baked into, that's not an escalation, but it's a kind of catch. And I would say it's a catch for things like this. Like we come up to a moment and we say, well, we'd actually kind of need a field, like a room over there for this, or we didn't think about that here. That's an adder for things because it's so early, we don't actually know everything. And that's intended to catch those. And most of the time, that percentage is dropping out as we go because we're doing a good job of catching the scope. But in this case, there might be things that those actually takes the place of that as a line item. But that's how these are baked. I feel like we went through a lot of rounds of review on this with the estimators and Dorian Whittier. And I feel like this is a good snapshot of, the difference between PDP and PSR is PDP was definitely not apples to apples on these options because of the non-high school space. I can confidently tell you with the PSR ones, these are apples to apples. And we've tried to show you that over all the meetings we've had so far. And that these numbers, some of them didn't go up very much at all. Some of them went up more, and it's because of that non-high school space that we added in because you guys asked us to. The last slide I have is just.
1 second, I think
yeah.
Megan had a question.
So how many estimators weigh in on these prices?
So this is the designer's cost estimate, and then Dorian Whittier reviews it in-house with their team.
Okay.
When you get to the next one,
Well, it could be.
Based on a decision you're going to talk about here in a minute, you'll add at least one, maybe two, depending on how you choose to run the project. But there'll be, and then you go through a whole reconciliation process and all of that stuff. So.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, there are a number of reconciliations that happen during that process. So you do it at SD, at the end of schematic design, we would do one. At the end of design development, we do another one. We do another one at 60% construction documents, and then another at 90%. So there's a series of reconciliations that happen, and depending on the method of delivery from construction, that will impact the number of estimators that are involved. But there will always be at least two independents and potentially a construction manager, depending on which way we go.
Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Doug, did you say it was $3.43 per million? Is that-
334.
334.
334 per million? And so,
It's a from lowest to highest, it's a $95 a year difference.
and I know every dollar is precious, but I'm trying to think in my head, if there's basically a $25 million delta across everything that we're looking at,
Can I do that math?
Do that math.
I do that math.
It's a
So a
$28.5
$300 million project for the average mean assessed value in town of $783,000 is $1,002. Okay, that's the increase for your property taxes for this project only. For every
Whole project, not just the differential.
for the project that we're talking about now.
Yeah.
The high school project. So for every $30 million, so at 330, that price would go from $1,002 to $1,102. If you went to 360, it would go up to 1,204. That is the math. We've shown that before, but I have it. I actually asked if we had a whiteboard because I wanted to go back to my algebra days. But so that is the difference, right? So for every 30 million, it's $100.
And thanks, Terry. My point was, while every dollar is precious, clearly, I'm just saying from any design we're looking at, sort of over the length of however we do this, there's about $100 a year potentially.
It's about a 9%, 10% delta.
Okay, and did someone else, I didn't want to miss someone else. Okay. Are we done with cost? Or did you have
I
one
wanted
thing,
to say
Rich?
one more thing, because Chris and I have been doing this, and I know you guys are about to start deliberating. A lot of times when Chris and I have started talking about this, we kind of go, it's here or there. And here being here, and there being there. And when you just look at the price differentials on an average basis, I understand AR8 is more, but on an average basis, the ad renos are 326, 327, the new constructions are 347. So there's a delta between there that's just kind of obvious, but it's just a way of, I know talking points get out there. There's a premium to building on Varsity Field of call it $15 to $20 million over an ad reno.
Can I question that a little bit?
Sure.
If you look at AR8, which seems to be fairly popular,
Yep.
and you look at NC5, which it appears to be a better choice, the actual difference is what?
14 million.
14, all right. So if you look at 14 million times $3 a year, you get what?
It's
What's
50
$3
bucks.
$50 a year. So the difference.
Or the mean assessed
Right.
property.
The house that's in the middle of the road that gets to pay the middle amount would pay an extra $50 a year if you chose NC5, build on the field, over AR8, which are the two most popular options.
Assuming we can build the football field.
Exactly,
in
exactly.
the practice field, and that.
It will be part of the
and
cost.
Part of the cost
it's
already.
part of the
It's-
cost,
It's already
and
cost in.
that there will not be a track unless it's on the existing site.
Right, it would
here.
have to be
In the middle, yeah.
middle of the building, right.
Correct.
But those are all factored in as far as the costs go, and so the difference in money that you're looking at between AR8 and building on Varsity Field, the better of the two options to build on Varsity Field, would be $50 a year, or, what, $12 a quarter?
Yeah.
So it's a small difference between those two, money-wise. Chris Campbell has his hand
Oh,
up.
yes, Chris.
So clarifying question, so AR2 and AR8, they don't have any changes to Varsity Field
They're
in the cost?
The field
Presently,
house.
Just the bathroom and the concession.
All right, so the reason I bring that up is one of the things we've talked about is by the time that construction starts, that field will be on year 7 of a 10-year expectancy. Maybe we can get a couple more years, but that will eventually also be factored into, a cost of needing to be redone.
Yeah.
That is technically factored into the new builds of getting a new field and the new high school. So if we're saying it's 10 million for a new field, that is factored into
it's not that
the new
much.
builds. It's not 10 million?
not, well, not
No,
for a
no.
whole new, it's not a whole new field. but-
Stadium.
Through the
Go
chair.
ahead, Doug.
Good to know.
So the thing that has a 10-year lifespan is this turf surface.
Yep.
That's $1 million to $1.5 million. That lasts 10 to 11 years. All of the underlayment, preparation, drainage, that's several million.
Yep.
And that's something that's been done on the existing varsity. So it's not quite accurate to say, well, we're almost finished with the life of that. We're finished with the life of the carpet.
Correct.
We're not rebuilding the foundation.
Is there anything you want to add, Mr. Kuna? Because I know you live and eat and breathe it.
So, I mean, I'll just add that what Doug said is fairly accurate. When we do replace the carpet, we do obviously have to address the underlayment as well, just to make sure that it's in good standing condition and level. But that's typically minimal. After about 3 carpet replacements, then there is some site work that does need to happen, right? So not a full rebuild, But again, the longer the project lives, there is some underlayment that work that needs to be completed.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay. Any other- Chris, did you get your, what you needed? All right. Are we ready to move on, or no?
Yeah, that's up to you, Madam Chair.
Great. Well, there doesn't seem to be any more questions in regards to the cost side of things. So we'll go ahead and go to the next item, and again, it's just discussion about potential option elimination and path forward. So,
Melissa Masato has a hand raised.
she had her hand up, I think, for a while. Yeah.
Hi, Catherine. Now that we've talked about all these options, in the spirit of having listened to our friendly abutters, as Chris likes to call them, I would like to move that we eliminate the option of having a field stadium on the existing high school footprint, and with acknowledgement of even if we cannot build on the practice field, that we will not revisit that option.
And what she means by that is not building the field between the two buildings. Here.
The
I just wanna-
field,
the
not
field.
not
The
necessarily
full
the
up
track.
football stadium will not go between the two buildings. The track is still on the table to go between the two buildings,
Second?
making that clear.
We have a second.
Second.
So you second that, okay. Is there any discussion amongst the committee?
Yes.
Dr. Conti?
I'm going to support the motion, but understand that if we can't put the stadium on the practice field, then we are selecting one of the new constructions that's connected to this building, what we're calling the Ad Renos. So AR.
Or 8.
What?
AR 2 or 8.
AR 2 or 8. So just, so it's sort of a two-part decision. So that's kind of what,
And again, the $30,000 study will determine whether we can do that or not,
Correct.
which is why we're trying to get it done over the next few weeks.
yes. And again, and then to stress that if we can put the stadium where the practice field is, that does not include a track. So even if then you choose to put a new building where varsity field is and not put varsity field here, and again, I'm supporting that, the track is still gonna need to go somewhere. So the
Yep.
track would still need to go here.
Correct.
So I just wanna, there's sort of several permutations to this that are gonna be dependent on, if or whether we can move, the varsity field. And, so that's kinda what I'd say. So that was my comment.
Mimi?
So, during public comment section, what I wanted to read was another perspective. And I can wait, but I know the motion to proceed with this vote has already been made, but I would have preferred if we could have had more robust discussion, because I hear from abutters in precinct 3, I hear from abutters in precinct 2, and then in precinct 1, I hear from two kinds of residents in general. Those who are strongly in favor of a building that is physically independent and brand new, and a lot of older residents who have other kinds of concerns and are extremely against the varsity field being moved, even if the NRAD study? NRAD study permits it. And it was a resident who had wanted their perspective to be shared. And I just thought, in fairness to all the different voices out there, it would be great.
You'd like to read that comment now,
Sure.
or that's a fair place to do it, because it is discussion.
Yep.
So it's not
So
public
I'm
comment,
not
so.
taking a position. I am just trying to get
Yep.
all the invested stakeholder voices out there. And before I read this, I want to say that I've been hearing from folks in precinct 2 who are opposed to even if though it would be temporary, as one possibility, the relocation of the varsity field to the middle school. So there are just so many different
Who is it?
wants and needs. But this is from Bill Boyven in Precinct 1. He shared this comment not in his capacity as a member of the Conservation Committee, but as a resident. So this is not the conservation that is speaking. And he wrote, "Please do not throw away the new athletic field.
Thank you.
2 of the existing proposals involve building a new school on the site of the existing athletic field. I strongly oppose this plan. As a town meeting member, I voted to spend a lot of taxpayer money to build that new field. I have heard people say, quote, by the time a new school is actually done, the field will be within 3 years of needing replacement, so tearing it out is not that big a deal, end quote." And Doug has already addressed this, but he goes on to write, "This is poor logic. Although the turf may need to be replaced, the underlying infrastructure, the drainage system, the track, the stands, and the restrooms will not need to be replaced. Throwing it all away is foolhardy and very bad use of taxpayer dollars. Please eliminate any plan that would build on the current athletic field. Thank you." So I just wanted to get that out there, because ultimately, if we put this to a debt exclusion, are all the people who are writing letters actually voters? How many of the people who diligently come here week after week, or not week after, month after month, vote? We hear from a lot of people, but who are the people who are voting? And I am... So I want to make sure that ultimately I support a project that is going to make it in the ballot, on the ballot. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Monaco?
I know that the people who live nearby really want us to take this vote and to take off the table building the varsity field in what I call the library, which is, the middle of the building. I think we need to make it extremely clear what Eric said, that if we are able to build on the practice field, it would only be varsity field. It would not hold the track. The track would have to go in the library, but it would not have lights and it wouldn't be varsity field. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that, because the real point in taking the vote that, for the motion Melissa made, is because, as I said at the meeting, the last meeting, the abutters meeting, what's important is that we come together on a solution that we can all support. Because to Mimi's point, if we don't pass a debt exclusion, we get nothing. So I also am in favor of doing this in the spirit of trying to get a consensus from the people that come to these meetings, from the abutters, that we are working together and that we will settle on a plan that we can all support for the debt exclusion.
Ms. Simon?
I am also very much in support of finding a solution that we can get a debt exclusion passed. And we know there's a lot of concern about moving varsity field here, or building on varsity field, or whatever. I just want to comment on a comment that was made about who's here and who isn't, because there are plenty of voters who are not here who have also expressed their opposing opinions. And so I don't want to denigrate the people who couldn't come because they have childcare issues or other concerns. We want to get all of the voters to support the option that we end up choosing in the end. Both the people who've been coming, which I respect a lot, and also the people who've communicated with us in other ways. So I just wanted to comment that the people who have strong opinions and can't make it to this meeting are also valuable residents who we need their vote to support whatever project we end up with.
Thank you, Ms. Simon. Any other comments from the committee? All right, do we want to go ahead and take a vote? No more discussion? Okay, I'm going to go down the list. All right. Chris Monaco?
Aye.
Jeremy Brooks?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Aye.
Dr. Conti?
Yes.
Lisa Chen?
Yes.
Joe Abato, are you on?
I am. Aye.
Okay. Mimi?
Aye.
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Nicole's not here. Bob Kuna?
Yes.
And Doug Davidson?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Tom's not here. Paul's not here. Martha?
Aye.
And Mark Sullivan?
Yes.
Oh, and our student's not here. And the chair is an aye. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17 votes in favor.
Okay. Motion passes.
Motion passed.
All right. Kind of unanimously.
Yes.
Colin Eric.
Okay. So we have voted off officially building the field between the full football field, stadium between the two. So is there any other discussion, people that talk about any of the other options that are out there?
Madam Chair,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm
I'd
sorry.
also like to make a motion to remove NC1 as an option for consideration.
Okay. Any discussion on removing NC1? And NC1 is a long skinny building.
Second.
Bottleneck
Did you get a
problem,
second?
Just to define that for everybody.
She got a second.
Okay. Any discussion from the committee? All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a vote on that. Chris?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Aye.
Eric?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Mimi?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Martha?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Same
6,
vote.
7, 8, 9, 10. 17, 0, 0. Okay.
Eric wants to say something.
Dr. Conti, do you need the word?
No, that was no worries. All
Oh,
good.
you were going to make the motion?
You're both going to make the
I'm
motion.
not
so-
saying, I'm not saying.
Well, you voted for it.
Show me your cards.
Okay.
Yeah. What'd you say?
Let's keep cutting them.
Keep cutting them.
All right. Any more discussion on our current options that we have?
I have a discussion, please, through the chair. I guess this is really for the architects or engineers. Is there, my understanding that, I don't want to use the word semantics, but between NC2 and, I'm sorry, AR2 and AR8, during SD, we could refine any of those, so having both of those options on the table may not be necessary. I get it, there's differences between the two, and I would make the same argument for NC4 and NC5, that, you know, if we come down to a location, either on the varsity field or on the current building, we could dive deeper into SD, into both of those ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, so the nuance of, yeah, so we can, and we always do this during schematic design, just as a preview. When you pick the option that you prefer, we start to do a bunch of programming meetings. We go through a whole lot of like in the weeds type stuff that we stay out of when we're trying to just do big picture, like where does it go? And then during schematic design, which is your next phase, we can definitely look harder at some of the cons that we've listed, which are like orientation of the building. How do we like manipulate the facade a little bit more to create efficiencies and things like that? If I can help you with your conversation, I would say if you're going to consider the differences between AR2 and AR8, I think it boils down to the phasing that's required to make something like AR2 work versus AR8. And the fundamental difference is, are we tearing down a big program item in order to make that shape or that form work? Or are we saying, let's stay out of that zone? We're not going to do that. And if you said that's kind of a non-starter for us, we don't want to figure out the auditorium situation for 4 years, and we don't want to deal with music for 4 years, then I would say the choice between those two is fairly cut and dry, that you'd say just stay outside of the envelope, build us something right there that can then be tied in as the last switch of phasing, and then, you know, give us the best take you can make at AR8, and, you know, maybe make some of these courtyard things a little better, maybe the orientation's a little bit better, and look at that really hard. And I think that we could definitely do that as part of schematic design. But I think your big conversation point is around the phasing and logistics between those two, and that's why we tried to outline that pretty heavily this evening.
And the phasing and logistics were much more difficult in AR2 compared to
Correct.
AR8. Okay.
That's the most difficult phasing project you have on the table right
Okay,
now.
I'd like to make a motion to eliminate option AR2.
Second.
Okay, any discussion amongst the crew?
It just doesn't
Chris.
work.
I don't mind. So when we kind of started this process, I personally was a big fan of AR2 when it started with the schematics, but it really came down to drilling down into these specifics and thinking about how it's going to affect our programs, our students, the overall flow, what we're trying to get out of it. And I think all of these conversations as it went, you know, for myself, that was one that I was like, wow, this looks really nice from the beginning. And then it just, as we continue to look at these and refine and have these conversations, it's really interesting how they start to really fall off. Because this one was one that I thought stood out. And so I would agree with this motion.
Okay, any other comments? All right, I will go ahead and take a vote. Chris M.
Yes.
Jeremy? Jeremy Brooks?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Megan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joe?
Aye.
Mimi?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Martha?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye, so it's 17-0-0.
Should we go ahead and,
Progress.
should we go ahead and eliminate NC4?
Can we do a motion for remove R1?
It's not, it's
already
already
gone.
been
Keeping that?
removed.
Okay,
It's
so
gone.
I think that needs to be
Long
clear.
ago.
So,
Ms. Simon?
Cannot be built on.
What was that?
Chris was, had a comment about NC4.
No, he
Made it.
Oh, no.
If we
Did-
eliminate.
I just want to make
I
sure we're
guess-
clear.
I thought I heard something about eliminating NC4. and,
Yeah, it was my idea to
And
maybe
I,
do that.
I certainly would lean toward NC5, but I'm, given that it's a couple of $1 million more, I don't know if we want to,
The
but again, if,
NC5 is less, so keeping
oh, NC.
yeah, so I was
NC5 is less.
eliminating the
Okay,
more expensive
Okay, that was
one.
my concern, okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we eliminate NC4.
Second.
Don't all speak at once. That was funny.
Did someone second it?
Yeah,
Okay, there were too many people
we had a
talking.
lot of seconds
All
on
right,
that
thank
one.
you. I was paying attention to the numbers over here. All right, any discussion around that? Everyone comfortable with that? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take a vote.
It's the most expensive option, let's do it.
Okay. Chris M.
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Aye.
Eric?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Mimi?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And the chair is an aye, so 17-0-0.
So wrap it up that we
Making some
have,
progress.
we're down to two.
You want one more?
And we're down to two options.
Architects are smiling.
Two options that we are now down to are AR8 and NC5. So thank you, everybody.
So the one option is an ad reno, and one option is a new build. And the others we can push aside.
All right. So let's go ahead, and I guess we can move on, right?
Yep.
Okay, so, Terry?
Yeah,
it's your
so
stage.
the next one slides, and I will try and attempt to do this quickly, and I would look to have the finance working group chime in on this, and it has to do with construction delivery method. There are two options that we can choose. We're not obligated to do any one at any particular time, especially not now, but in order to do a CM at risk, we do have to submit something to the OIG requesting that we do that. It's a largely procedural process. We also need to select a subcommittee to actually review an RFP that would go out to folks. So there's a little bit of work with CM at risk, and I need some people to volunteer if we go that route. You know, design, bid, build, you actually employ this construction delivery method at Fox Hill. I'm not sure what the police station is doing. My guess is that's CM at risk, but I don't know. But I know what you did. So design, bid, build is a lot. If I had a piece of land and we were going to build a building and we were just going to put a contractor and tell them to go do it, I would definitely recommend design, bid, build.
Dr. Conti?
The community has, and we have experience with both. So Memorial School was a new build. That was a design, bid, build. Marshall Simons was sort of similar to what we're considering here, which was new construction with renovation, and that was a CM at risk by design for the same recommendations Terry did. Terry, is there any downside to starting the CM at risk process?
There is none.
So again, I would move we start the CM at risk process as we did with the Marshall Simons Middle School. It seems more appropriate for some of the options that we're exploring. And then, again, Terry, if we end up in a completely disadvantaged situation, you're saying we don't need to continue with that process?
We're not, but.
Second.
Is there a cost associated with this?
So yes, there is, so there's always a cost difference. So in these, to bring a CM on board early, one, you typically engage them in something called pre-construction, which is an amount of money to be negotiated, and typically it's not huge dollars because they want the job, right? And so and what they bring to the table to do that, right, is they look at phasing, they provide you with an estimate that is, so we go through a reconciliation with the estimator that the architect has with our estimator, and they're coming at it from a construction perspective, so that when you get through that process through SD, you come up with a number that isn't just by the designer or by the OPM, it's by an actual contractor that has to, do that with a third-party estimator, and it translates into something called a guaranteed maximum price. Typically, fees associated with a CM at risk are slightly higher than design, bid, build, and the way a lot of folks look at that is you're paying up front to ensure that you have less change orders at the back. So when you do design, bid, build, if there is a change, any change, you will pay for it. Whereas in CM at risk, it's a negotiated open book. You're more in a team environment to try and mitigate risk and mitigate cost. And so it's much more open book and a collaborative approach. And I can certainly tell you if we are moving towards AR8, I don't even think we should be honestly having this discussion. We need a CM. But even with the new build out on the football field, this is just a really complicated site. And you can imagine if we're building there, well, everybody's driving by, and we're still going to have to demolish a portion of this building. And there's a lot of interconnected pieces between the existing high school function and what we're trying to do. So in the end, it typically washes out, but there's definitely a premium.
Dr. Conti?
No, again, stressing the same thing what I said. We have kids on this site, just like we had at Marshall Simons, having the builder actually a partner up front, telling us where their trucks are going to be, where their materials are going to be, how they're going to protect the kids, have them be part of that design process. I don't think we even have a choice. So this site is tight, and I think we need to have the actual builder at part of that process, so we're clear on where they're going to be, how they're going to be separated, and And I just think, as Terry said, if this were a 50-acre site and a farm field where, nothing else around, that's a different process, but that's not where we're at, so.
Well, we still have unknowns for the when we're doing the renovations in the two sections of the building that need renovated too, which
Again, from
do
the,
we
from
wanna
the,
kind
from the
of-
building part, absolutely, that's out of my area. I'm saying, having the construction workers and the students on a relatively tight space, again, is doable, safe, all that other stuff, but would really want that construction company here to tell us what exactly they're gonna do, what space they need. Just be a partner. I think that's what Terry's saying. So, again, we can overtalk this, but I think this is I think it almost is something that we have to do for this particular site.
So on page 39, you will see two, well, the first one is a motion. I obviously can't make one, but I tried to write it.
Eric made a
so-
motion.
Can I? Not a-
Yeah, of course you can.
Eric made a motion and I seconded it.
And because I think someone's about to ask the question, but the cost for CM has already been included in these cost estimates, so we already kind of assumed that it was the conservative approach because it is more money up front, and we wanted to make sure we baked that in, so, so that's already included.
It's
in the-
already in
Yep, it's already in.
Good.
So.
All right, any more discussion? So I guess we'll take a vote. All right. Chris M.
Yes.
Jeremy?
Aye.
I know he's a
Megan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Aye.
Eric?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joe? Joe Adubato?
Yes.
Mimi?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Martha?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
And the chair is an aye, so that's 17-0-0 for that as
So
well.
much agreement.
I know, it's
Can't
good.
get over it.
It's very good.
It's good. So the next little bit, I mentioned this, so if you go down a path of CM at risk, there's kind of a prescribed procurement process where we would issue requests for proposals from construction firms. We then will receive those proposals. We have to review them, rank them, similar to what you guys did when you hired ourselves and TAP A. What we need are people to be on that committee, and typically, certainly somebody from Doran Whittier will be on that subcommittee. Somebody from TAP A would be on that committee. I would like to have 3 or 4 individuals from this committee join that, and don't all jump out at once. But I think there's some natural ones. I'll pause to see if anyone's like, I want to do it.
Eric already said he'd
Like to volunteer.
Yep, Jeremy, Eric.
Eric? Anyone else? Doug?
Being
Bobby.
voluntold.
Yeah, voluntold.
Yeah, voluntold, Bob, that would be good.
All right, there's your 3.
That's great. I don't necessarily, actually, I do need a motion, don't I? So we do need a motion to
So it looked
nominate
like-
those 3 to be on the committee.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint the members who just volunteered to CM at Risk Subcommittee to evaluate future proposals and make recommendations to the school building committee.
Second, but can we name them? It's Bob, Nicole, and Eric?
No.
No.
Bob, Nicole, and,
Nicole is not
Not as
on
much.
it.
Nicole, Bob,
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Jeremy, and
Bob. Oh, but Eric.
Eric. Okay. Sorry, Nicole.
So is this, because it's a fiscal one, is this just a school committee vote or is it everyone?
Well, yeah, some of these are really school committee votes, but
We'll
I
let
wouldn't
everyone
think,
vote.
that I wouldn't.
don't think this
I
one
don't think
matters.
this is. I think when you choose to enter into a contract,
We'll do that,
then
okay.
you would
So
do that.
let's get everyone in on this and see how you feel. All right. Chris Monaco.
yes.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Megan.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Mimi. Chris Campbell.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Neil.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Gail.
Yes.
Martha.
Aye.
Mark.
Yes.
And the chair is an aye, so 17-0.
No, it's 16-01.
16. Oh, who opposed?
Mimi. She
Oh, you-
didn't oppose
I
it,
didn't
she
oppose, I just
abstained.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, my goodness.
I have a
I
question.
apologize, Mimi. So one abstention, so 16.
So, one quick question is, do we have the money to begin this, or does this have to be appropriated?
So right now, it is largely a procedural matter for us to be able to do that, and depending on what is available in funds and timing, that may be a question for later. I'm actually somewhat hopeful, and the CMs out there won't appreciate this. It's called pre-con, and some of us like to call it free-con, because this will be an attractive job for people. And there are certainly, we've had CMs come to our meetings, come to our public. There's interest in this job, and so I would hope that we'd be able to bring somebody on board to assist us in that pre-construction to help get us this estimate for very, very few dollars. They're not going to like the fact that I've just said that, but might as well let them know now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now,
Is that it for
That's it.
you? Okay.
Yeah,
So we're done with that. So I think community meeting is next, right?
Yep. And this is, you can.
Yeah. So again, we felt it important to have another community forum with an open back and forth discussion like we had. The next community meeting is going to be on Thursday, March 27th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. in the BHS auditorium. So I just wanted to make sure we made that announcement as well. Okay? And then any other topics that we did not anticipate?
We had talked about doing another Butters meeting.
yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay. Because the
did-
topics we haven't brought up yet, so.
We need to set a date for it.
Yep.
Right, so we just have to find a date that we can accommodate in this building. So we will put the word out there, and I don't have a problem having another Butters meeting. I think it's fair.
Okay,
Yep.
public comment?
And then we're back to public comment again, and I know you read what you wanted to read. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to say anything else? Bob, anyone? Oh, yes, gentleman in the back.
There is one online as well, too, and
There's someone online too?
yes,
Okay. Thank you for your patience.
We'll be brief. I'll let my other half time go to somebody else, but I did have a question on the AR8. Seems like naturally we will be refreshing both the gymnasium and the auditorium, from what I understand.
Yes.
NC5 does not come with that. NC5 is just a new
Yes, it
build
does.
all by itself, so we're not touching the
We're-
existing.
I will answer that question. So if the new build, both this lower section and upper section will be renovated up to code. They're not going to be just
Will
left.
be?
Yeah, they're not going to just be left as they are. Everything is getting brought up to.
Yeah, that wasn't
code.
clear. Okay, so we will end up with 3 gymnasiums and 2 auditoriums.
Yes.
No.
My math is correct.
No.
One auditorium.
One auditorium.
There's
One
no auditorium
There's
in the
not
new
an
build?
auditorium in the new, in NC5.
There's, NC5 would create a new auditorium at that school, but the one here gets demolished when you take out the middle of the building.
Okay. And that's a pretty nice auditorium for public use, not just for school, but for theater groups, for dance recitals, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very nice facility. So a refresh to that auditorium seemed like it would be
Yes.
good use of
It's not
taxpayer dollars.
accessible though, which is complicated. I think you were saying it's complicated to bring that back up. I mean, we could, which is what is in
But
one
it
of
would
the
be
things.
part of the AR8.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And then, the idea of Apple, what we compared apples to apples, and it was only a $25 million delta. we still don't have a varsity field in that scenario. So we still have to spend another, whatever, however many $1 million
Built
for.
in. It's built into the cost.
It's built in.
It's built into the cost,
Yeah, everything that you saw includes,
but we don't know where that field's being built based on
it has to be as we proposed.
As we
So it would have
proposed.
to be across, if we did
Okay.
the new standalone building,
Right.
the
Will
varsity
include
field would have to go across the street,
where
and
the
then
prac-
the
where the
track
prac-
would have to go in this middle section.
Practice field is. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Can we just get the gentleman's name?
Yes, your
Oh,
name.
yeah, I'm sorry, James Capuzza, Arlington Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, sorry. No, my phone's ringing at the same time. I'm just trying to make sure there's no emergencies going on.
Good evening. Eileen Sickler, senior citizen. So back in November or December, we talked about the non-high school space, and 40,000 square feet was mentioned, and that would cost about $40 million. So it was, what's that? $1 million per 1,000 square foot or something. But so now I think I was looking at that, and I thought I saw 96,000 as non-high school. Now that may include the gym and auditorium. I'm not sure. But and I don't know if this is a give and go here. But if we could have a breakdown of that 96,000.
Yeah.
And I get back to dog with a bone and say, okay, have we at least shown good faith in going out there and looking at commercial space and seeing what we can get for the non-high school? You know, I've talked with various people, and I haven't heard a compelling reason why we have to keep this BCAT or even BECC and the maintenance and central office, why we have to spend $40 million to keep them here, or, you know, to be included in the price. So I hope that you go out and do that, and just, again, if nothing else, but in good faith, to understand, you know, that there could be an option out there with all this commercial space available. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd have to tear it down.
Okay.
I have a related question.
I'm sorry, we're not, yeah, go on. Sherry.
Sherry Ellis, just a question on timeline so that everyone understands. You've just eliminated all but the two options, and you cannot eliminate another option until you've done the test bearings and geothermal, whatever you need to do. And so the time for that, in other words, we have a community forum in 2 weeks. You're not having another meeting before then, I assume, to make any decisions. So I just want that to be, give us a timeline as to what you think is
Go ahead.
coming
We'll
forward.
let that be answered, just because we know there's a timing thing that you
Yeah,
want to
so,
understand.
there are no decisions being made on the other two options till no earlier than April 10th. Now, the intention is to try and complete the ANRAD over the course of the next 2 weeks to get it in front of Concom. We will have flagged it. We will know the buildable area that should provide enough guidance that we'd know that we can actually do it. Now, having said that, it needs to go to Concom and go to a hearing, and if we can manage to complete the work, curiously enough, the next Concom meeting is April 10th, same day that we're meeting. So, look, it's aggressive, but I think the committee has made it clear that without the answer to that, you can't make a decision. So, I think that's the commitment that I've heard. I hope you've heard that, and so that will influence the decision one way or the other, or potentially even dictate it, as the case may be.
Okay. And Sharon?
Hello, Sharon Laurie, Precinct 3, a butter. I first want to start by saying thank you. I see some movement in a positive direction. And hopefully, we can keep having these open dialogues. As far as green space, because this is comical for me, when I look out my front door, I look at lovely solar panels. And I know they're helping the school, and they're helping bring down the cost of electricity. And so I'm delighted to know that my house and my view is helping the residents of Burlington and the kids. As far as NC5, if it's a go, can you create a legal document stating that you will never, ever transform the track into a stadium or any other buildable space? I think that's really important because I think down the line somewhere, someone's going to come up with an idea and they might say, we should have the stadium here. And I want us, the residents of Burlington and the abutters, to know that they are going to be safe if they choose to vote on this NC5 versus AR8. The Burlington High School students, the AI community, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to them, because those students have enough sense to realize what's really involved and what's going on today, and to honor their parents as far as the fiscal responsibility of coming up with an extra $1,000 a year, or $1,050, or perhaps more. And our seniors, you know, you make light of the $50. I may be able to afford $1,050 more in my taxes every year, but there's a lot of people that cannot. More importantly, our times are changing. There's tariffs. People are getting laid off. The federal government, the Department of Education is going to be chopped down in half, according to our president. If that's the case, what does that do for the funding that's coming in for this school? Does that mean our taxes are going to go up again because of what the federal government decided to do? And so I think we are getting closer. I'm not convinced we have the right option just yet. I'm convinced that the practice field is drenched. I saw a picture of someone today, and they walked in the field, and there was inches of wetness, water. So I think we still need to think of another plan, a backup plan, just so you can get all of us on board. But I do appreciate that you are trying, and it's evident today. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Anyone online that?
Yeah, Laura made it.
Laura?
Hi, I just wanted to bring up our DSC classes that are not at the high school yet. I don't know if any of our plans have those included, but I think in the next few years we will have 2 DSC programs at the high school that will need classroom space, office space, potentially a kitchen, laundry space. So I think that could be addressed in a subcommittee or in a future meeting, but I just wanted it to be on our radar.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna,
Anybody else in the audience or public comment? Okay.
I have a question related
Yes,
to,
Ms. Simon.
when you parse out the square footage for non-educational programming, one of the things I would like us to be able to see clearly, some of those things are school district involved or related, like the science center, the district maintenance, and the central office, and maybe NBCC, so, and which ones are not, because what this committee made a choice on November 11th to include all of those in this project, and we did include BCAT, and I'm not sure if there were other programs in this project, which is included in the cost of this project. So whatever choice we make, I want to be clear that we have taken on a cost we are taking that on as a school project, but it's for the whole town. And so we did that because we felt that all those programs were valuable. And so just when you do that request, could you also include that? And maybe it's just BCAT, I can't even remember now, but thank you.
There were a bunch of them were like that.
There were a
because
couple
the
others.
students, even though they're not on the curriculum, the students are participating and going to those things on the campus and learning from it, even though it's not an official class. So, Megan?
So thank you, Laura, for bringing that up. That's something that I had brought up months ago, and Dr. Conti had assured me that it was in the non-educational programming section, because I know we're working on vertical alignment of our K through 12 special education programs, so that is planned space. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. So next meeting?
I think we
I
touched
can
on
bring it
that.
up.
There's a,
27th, isn't it?
yeah.
So the next meeting is, the community meeting is March 27th, 2025, 6:30 PM, BHS Auditorium.
Sure you want it in the auditorium?
And, what?
Sure you want it in the auditorium?
Yes.
And then the next school committee, building committee meeting is on April 10th at 6:30 PM. And then we hope to have another, again, we'll try and figure out a date for an abutters meeting over that's not on this slide. And then we hope to have another community meeting in April after there's more discussion. So then after that, it's May 8th is the next meeting, June 12th. And then, of course, we continue to have working group meetings throughout all of these meetings in between. So,
And can I just
Go
add
ahead,
one
yeah.
thing, just because I know this question has come up? So the cadence that the building committee has committed to is the second Thursday of every month. So if you're ever wondering, we haven't put the dates for the back half of the year, but barring some change, it will be the second Thursday of every month. So I just wanted folks to know that.
okay. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Aye. All right, motion, the meeting's adjourned.